Today, we are gonna talk about a man who might be the most respected and beloved figure in all of Chinese history. Yeah, I didn't even use one of. Take a look at this clip. When his death scene plays, the screen is flooded with comments saying, "Bless our Prime Minister, RIP our greatest Prime Minister." Yes, he is the Prime Minister of ancient China, Zhuge Liang. Zhuge, not Zhuge. You might not know him well, but if you want to understand what a perfect statesman or ideal hero looks like in Chinese culture, in Chinese history, you need to understand him. About 1800 years ago, during the Three Kingdoms period, he was the Prime Minister of Shu Han, generally considered as the weakest of the Three Kingdoms. He launched multiple campaigns to the north, but never achieved a decisive victory. In the end, he died on the front lines. For thousands of years, this has been one of China's greatest historical what-ifs. People joke online. What if he had instant noodles for rations? What if he had high-speed railways to transport supplies? What if he had 10,000 athletes like Shaquille O'Neal as his soldiers? It sounds ridiculous, but it shows how much people wished he could have won. So here is the question: why did he fail so many times, yet still become a legendary hero in China? Let's quickly go over his first half of his life in 1 minute. He was born in the year 181 in a small village in Nanyang, Henan province. Not poor, but definitely a fallen noble family. Then one day, a struggling warlord named Liu Bei heard about him and visited him not once, not twice, 3 times. This is a famous story, 3 visits to the cottage. Zhuge Liang finally joined him. At that time, he was 27 years old. At first, he wasn't a battlefield genius. He was more like the guy fixing everything behind the scenes, logistics, administration. Now, this is important. If you know him from the famous novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms, you probably think he ran Eastern Wu and defeated a crowd of scholars in debates. He tricked Cao Cao into giving him 100,000 arrows with straw bows. He even borrowed the east wind from heaven to win the Battle of Red Cliffs. It all sounds magical, but in real history, none of that actually happened. Like for the first one, he did go to Eastern Wu as an envoy for his lord Liu Bei, and he did have built alliance with Sun Quan, but nothing like a dramatic debate with scholars ever happened. Historically, he was quite practical, focused on governance at that time. Then everything changed in 223. After a devastating defeat, Liu Bei was dying at a place called Baidi Cheng, the city of Baidi. He entrusted everything, his son, his kingdom, to Zhuge Liang. From that moment on, Zhuge Liang became the real power behind Shu Han, ruling alongside the young king Liu Shan, the son of Liu Bei. And he only had 11 years left to live. So what happened? What did he do in those 11 years that made people respect him for 1800 years? It comes down to maybe 3 key words: loyalty, ability, and tragedy. Let's start with loyalty. At Liu Bei's deathbed, he called Zhuge Liang, his son Liu Shan, and many ministers to his bedside. He told Zhuge Liang, "Your talent is 10 times greater than Cao Pi, our enemy. With you, our kingdom will surely be well governed. And for my son Liu Shan, if he is worthy to be assisted, assist him. If he is unworthy and unfit to rule, you may take the throne yourself." This is basically saying, I trust you more than my own blood. Now sure, some people love conspiracy theorists. They say there were maybe assassins hiding behind the curtain. If Zhuge Liang showed any ambition, he'd be killed. But that's just silly. It drags both Liu Bei and Zhuge Liang down to a petty, stupid level. At that time, Shu Han was on the brink of collapse after a huge defeat. Liu Bei was basically saying to his lifelong friend, "Hey bro, I messed up. I'm leaving soon. You have to finish what we started. I trust you completely, and I want everyone, my son, all the ministers, to see that I give you full authority to do whatever must be done." This kind of ruler-minister relationship is, I guess, extremely rare in Chinese history and even in the world. And Zhuge Liang, he never betrayed the trust until his final breath. There was a document, Chu Shi Biao, the memorial of the Northern Expedition. Every Chinese middle school student learned this text. It's a letter Zhuge Liang wrote to his king Liu Shan right before he launched his campaign. In that letter, he talks like a man carrying the weight of a dying state. He explains why the situation of the state is so fragile, how the emperor should govern in his absence, and if he dies, who can rely on. When I first learned it as a teenager, I just memorized the words under my teacher's requirements. But when I come back to it later in my life, I feel like it reads more like a final message, almost like a will. A man preparing for death, still thinking about his country, his lord, and what comes after him. That's what loyalty looked like to Zhuge Liang. Now, let's talk about his ability. Forget the magic tricks from the novel, things like repeating crossbows or wooden oxen. Some of those are exaggerated, some probably fictional. His real strength was something else, running a country that was always on the edge of collapse. Shu Han was the smallest of the three kingdoms, limited population, limited resources, and yet for over a decade, Zhuge Liang kept the state functioning. He organized taxation, stabilized agriculture, expanded irrigation systems, and most importantly, he turned Shu Han's silk industry into a major source of state income. Shu brocade became one of the key financial pillars of the regime. In Chengdu, people even built a temple in his honor and worshipped him almost like a deity, to remember what he did for the people who lived there. Not as a king, not as a conqueror, but as a public servant. But the real reason he became a legend, I guess maybe is this: he was a tragic hero. In his final years, he kept attacking Cao Wei. He always knew how hard it would be, yet he also knew something else. And the very foundation of Shu Han was built on restoring the Han dynasty. So he had no choice. He could never stop. Driven by his ideals and his loyalty to Liu Bei, he launched campaign after campaign, again and again and again, totally 5 times. But there was a problem. The gap in strength was just too big. And before Zhuge Liang even took power, Liu Bei had already lost most of Shu Han's best talent in his failed campaigns. So no matter how hard Zhuge Liang tried, he couldn't win. Yet, his ability was undeniable. His main rival was Sima Yi, the man whose family would eventually take control of China. But whenever he faced Zhuge Liang, he wouldn't fight. He stayed behind the walls and waited. After Zhuge Liang died, Sima Yi inspected his empty camps, his formations, his military manuals, and sighed, "This man was a genius. I can't defeat him." And that's a tragedy. Even like a man, a genius like this, fighting against all odds, still could not win. Zhuge Liang was literally worked to death. He took responsibility for everything, no matter how small. A messenger once told Sima Yi, "Our prime minister works day and night, barely eats, barely rests." Then Sima Yi replied, "He's not young. Maybe he won't last long." He was right. Zhuge Liang died soon after, on the front lines, still trying to win. That's why for so many people, he's both a tragic figure and someone to admire. People remember him not because he won, but because he stayed loyal. He carried impossible responsibility. He held himself to the highest standard, and he never gave up. Common people miss him. Scholars respect his wisdom and loyalty. Ministers wish they could be admired as he was, and for rulers, they all dream of having a minister as capable and loyal as him. And when all of that comes together, his legacy only grows higher and higher. Then came the novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and he stopped being just a man. He became a legend, almost a god. Okay, that's the story of Zhuge Liang. Yeah, I'm also a big fan of him, just look at my name. So if you like this story, if you want more about Chinese history and culture, let me know in the comments. I'm Zhuge, named after Zhuge Liang. See you next time.